could it be? But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Ron Rivera dropping some gems on our melon. It was a little spicy at the league meetings. Nothing, you know, out of pocket per se. You know, nobody was stepping out of bounds. Ron didn't have to check anybody, but boy, was Ron, you know, letting us know what was really good. What's really good? I left this thing feeling more confident in the messages that I've been delivering to you. Shit, it felt like I was in some of these meetings with them. Or rather, they were listening to me and then they started regurgitating some of the shit I was saying. But because it all makes sense, all right? I told you guys, this is what I do. I make sense of shit that sometimes doesn't make sense for some of you. But I told you, just stick with me. I'm going to drop some gems on your mouth. I'm not always going to be right, and you guys know that. And I've been wrong, and I've been big wrong, okay? And I'll be big wrong more. But I'm right more than I'm wrong, and I stay dropping a gem or two on your melon. And as a matter of fact, I couldn't help myself. Listen to what Ron Rivera had to say about Sam Howell as far as his development goes and how he feels about Sam Howell heading into the upcoming season. Take a listen.
That's not the main reason. The main reason we go with Sam because we think Sam's going to be a good football player. We really do. You know, it's one of those things that I've talked to a couple of entities that typically do these write-ups about the draft. And when you go to them and you ask them, hey, can you tell me what did you guys have on Sam if he had come out in 2021? Okay, I had a number of them tell me that they had first-round grades on him. Okay, go back and call them. And it's, you know, the people at Pro Football Focus. I did a thing for them at the Super Bowl. While I'm doing the interviews, hey, wait a minute, can you guys tell me what you guys had on Sam? And right off the bat, they told me we had first, second round grade on him. So that's one of the pluses and positives. If the guy had come out, he'd have been a first or second round pick. We were fortunate. He fell to the 5th round because people didn't think it was a strong class. You know, remember, he was the front runner for the Heisman that year. And, you know, coming out of a season where he lost 3 offensive linemen to the draft, the tight end to the draft, wide receiver, Diami, to the draft, and 2 running backs. That's 7 primary players off of an offense that was very dynamic and explosive. Go back and research that and see those things, and you'll see what we've seen. And I really do believe that. So I don't think this is as much a wild shot as people think it is. And again, part of it is because you watch a young man like Brock Purdy have the season that he had last year, and you would like to think, wow, we have a guy that's got the same type of ability and skill set.
New Howell order.
Does that not sound eerily similar to something somebody been trying to tell y'all for the last 2 weeks? I'm going to just leave that there for y'all. For those of you who need it, I'm going to just leave that there, okay? So we don't really have to talk about Sam Howell. Ron pretty much told you how he feels about him right there. I told you how I felt about him and why. I told you there was an air of confidence that I said. I said this on a video, I want to say, that I posted on Sunday or Monday. I think it was Monday. Yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I said, there's been this air of confidence from Ron regarding the quarterback position that makes me a little bit uneasy if it's because he's holding out hope that he's going to go get someone. But it makes me feel more confident. I'm even willing more so to stick my chest out. I'm already sticking it out because I've already told you how I feel. But it makes me even more confident to stick my chest out because he sees it the same way that I do. And clearly, I got my answer. He sees it the exact. And when I say exact, you go to the 7-Eleven, you go to play your numbers. We're not playing any order, okay? He's playing exact, okay? 14. He's playing the exact number here. We here. Me and Ron, Martin, company, we here on Sam Howell. So they don't see him as a 5th round pick. They don't see him as a developmental guy. They see him as a guy that's ready to come in and help them win right away. The same way you would view a 1st round pick that you draft, where you're like, hey, this dude ready to come in and help right away. Yep, there's going to be mistakes. We know this to be a fact. He's young. He's only got 1 career NFL start. But guess what? He's ready to go right now. One of the things Ron said that I was like, oh, you know, if I had pearls to clutch, I would have been clutching my pearls. I was like, Ron said, yeah, we got some battles, some positional battles and some things that, you know, we want to take a look at. So Martin, this is where we start to see a difference in opinions, because Martin, he pretty much said Sam Howell's the starter without, you know, they used the term compete for, you know, Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby Brissett's a backup. They brought him here to be a backup. They brought him here to be a mentor to Sam Howell. They brought him to be a good guy in the locker room and a great addition to the quarterback room. Essentially, Martin Mayhew lays that out like, yeah, we brought him here to back up Sam. Sam's the guy we really believe Sam's going to be a great player in this league. Ron is a little bit, you know, a little bit more selective with his praise of Sam because, again, we've talked about this. He doesn't want to give Sam too much credit. He doesn't want to put the cart before the horse, right? He wants Sam to go out and earn it. The last time he was in this position with a young quarterback and he pretty much gave him the job was Dwayne Haskins, and we saw how that turned out. From a psychological standpoint, Ron's not doing that again. So he's been very selective with his praise. And he's very selective with, you know, talking about the quarterback position. It's Sam Howell's job. Seriously, like, we don't really have to go back and forth about this. But Ron said about left guard, you know, so let me back up a bit. Martin Mayhew said that we don't have enough depth on the offensive line. Ron is like, yo, we got all the depth on the offensive line. Yo, we got plenty of depth. And we got so much depth that we're going to have some competitions on this offensive line. Like at left guard, for example. We got Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul battling it out. And I'm like, you did not mention Andrew Norwell. My guy. Then JP Finley says, what about Andrew Norwell? I'm like, JP, shut your dumb ass up. I love JP Finley, though. Seriously. And he's like, yeah, Andrew, this is when I know Ron is like, man, get out of here with that. I told you, Ron, we know when Ron is really feeling somebody and we know when he's not. Because when Ron is feeling somebody, you almost got to stop Ron from praising that player or going into explicit detail. When Ron's not feeling you, you'll get a 1 or 2 line throwaway line, and Ron will keep it pushing. Oh, yeah, and you know, Andrew Norwell will be in the mix. Yes, that means Andrew ass may not even make the roster. That's what I want to hear. So I was shocked, though, because I had some jokes. Okay, I had some jokes about Sadiq Charles, okay? I wasn't too kind to Sadiq. We still cool. We still family, but I had some jokes about Sadiq Charles's involvement with this football team moving forward. And I told you, they love his work ethic. He's always around the building. He wants to get better. I just need to see it. But he's going to get an opportunity to compete for left guard, it sounds like, with Chris Paul. And maybe someone else that they may bring in. We'll see. But right now, I'd say it doesn't matter who they bring in unless it's a first or second round pick. The thought process is that guy won't be up to speed and ready to come in and work like those two guys are. Paul being here for a year now, going into his second season, and Sadiq now going into probably year 4. I think this got to be the last year of his rookie deal. Feels like Sadiq's been here forever now, and we're still waiting. If I'm not mistaken, Sadiq was in that 2020 draft. I feel pretty confident in that, but I've been wrong about these dudes. I've been putting guys in the 2020 draft that's in the 21 draft, guys in the 21 draft and the 20 draft. So I'm all over the place, but I really feel like Sadiq's in that 20 draft. You know, so I feel like this is a make or break year for Sadiq, and he may get an opportunity at left guard. You know, we'll see. But to piggyback off of that, they asked about the offensive line coaching position, and Ron was like, yo, we've been so busy that we haven't even had a chance to announce it. But we got a guy on the staff that we like. And I had mentioned this to you. I said, from what I've been told, from my one little source that I have, Travell Wharton is going to be promoted to offensive line coach. They like him a lot. They feel like he's pretty much been, you know, in the offensive line trainee program. And now that his mentor is gone, he is now ready to step in and assume the position of offensive line coach and have it be his room. He was the one doing all of the, speaking for the room. We weren't hearing from the old offensive line coach. We were always hearing from Travell Wharton. He would handle the press conferences when it came to the offensive line. So I think they feel really comfortable about his growth as a coach, and they're gonna give him an opportunity. So I think that's the guy Ron was referring to. I could be wrong. We'll see. Also, Juan Castillo, former offensive line coach with the Eagles, did a tremendous job there. That may be a guy Ron turns to and leave Travell Wharton right at assistant offensive line coach. We'll see. Those are the two candidates. One of those two guys is going to be the next offensive line coach here. If you do that, though, Juan Castillo right now is currently coaching the tight ends. You'd have to find a new tight ends coach. They could promote from within there. That's what they've been doing much of the offseason. We'll see. I think it's ultimately just going to be Travell Wharton getting the bump up from assistant offensive line coach to the offensive line coach. Same thing we saw with the defensive line when they fired Sam Mills III. They just bumped up Jeff Scanina from assistant D-line coach to the D-line coach. Took the assistant tag off and made him the D-line coach. So we'll see what happens there. Lamar's situation. So Ron was very, very adamant about the fact that Lamar just doesn't jive with what we're doing financially. There's a lot that you're going to have to give up, but, the money is really the problem. It's really the hiccup. Because we're just not in a position right now financially to go out and get a guy like Lamar Jackson. I truly believe if they wanted to make the money work, they could. But it will, and I've said this, it would come at the expense of some players that they would want to keep. And that's just not what they're looking to do. And furthermore, this whole conversation would have made more sense last year when there was no Sam Howell on the roster already. And there was only Taylor Heineke on the roster. There was no Carson Wentz. If this situation had arisen last year, we would have gone after Lamar Jackson, and we would have given up 2 first-round picks, and we would have gotten him. But with Sam Howell here, I think the comfort of having Sam Howell, having him been here a year, and them seeing him up close and personal, feeling really good about his growth and maturation, and feeling like they got a steal in the 5th round, and the cheap cost of him being their quarterback for the next 3 years, it's too enticing for them to pass up. They think they've got themselves a real ball player at quarterback, and they're not going to have to spend a ton of money on him in the current, in the current state of this football team. And that's how you roster build. And I've talked about this. You build up the infrastructure of the roster. You find the quarterback. You drop him in. They're building this thing. It's not a finished product, but they're building the infrastructure, and they're hoping Sam Howell is the quarterback that they drop in, a la Russell Wilson, a la Josh Allen in Buffalo, and then you hit the ground running, and then you've got this expansive window of opportunity to win and win big. That's what they're trying to build and cultivate here in Washington. And so Lamar Jackson would be kind of counterproductive to doing that. And so he's like, nah, we really ain't, going in that direction. And I got to give the reporters credit for the Ron Rivera scrum at his table at this league meeting, because they asked all of the questions that we wanted answers to. They were very persistent on some of these issues that needed to be asked in 3 or 4 different ways. And they made sure they squeezed every single ounce of news and information that we needed out of Ron during this presser. And Ron was very open to giving them, real legitimate answers. So I got to give the media some credit, because there are times where I'm frustrated with the questions that are being asked, because I feel like they don't ask the pertinent questions. They not only asked the pertinent questions, they dug in and asked multiple questions, follow-up questions, things that made sure there was clarity and that we could come away with a definitive answer and know the direction that they were moving in. That said, every now and again, when you get to these big arenas and Washington's name comes up in the national media, you get some people who aren't regulars, who are funny lookings, that want to show up, stick the mic in Ron's face and ask a specific question. I don't want to put this on Josina Anderson, but I really want to put this on Josina Anderson. I feel like this was Josina Anderson. She was hunting. She was hunting for a Lamar Jackson answer here. She's been very adamant on social media about the Commanders and what they should do, how they should be in the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, how they should put in their bid. There's no reason for them not to. Sam Howell shouldn't be a deterrent. And I feel like this was her. And she was hunting, man. If it wasn't her, whomever it was, they were hunting. And you could tell they specifically came with the purpose of trying to get some and extract some Lamar Jackson info out of Ron. I'm going to give you a soundbite here from Ron as he, I think, does a beautiful job of massaging this question. But I want you to listen to the answer because, again, it sounds eerily similar to something someone you know has been telling you for the last couple of weeks. I want you to take a listen as he does a great job of taking this question, I believe, from Josina Anderson. I could not see a face, all right? But I saw a body. I saw nails. I said, this sounds like Josina Anderson. She was hunting. Listen to Ron.
That's not the main reason. The main reason we're going.
Not knowing what ownership wants, and like whenever, ownership comes on board, what if new ownership were to say, they wanted you all to take a look at quarterback options outside of what you have?
Oh, well, then we'd have to, most certainly. But again, we will do those things as they come to us. But right now, we're just kind of, we got our opportunity to do what we needed to do in free agency, and now we're kind of just waiting and seeing what else is out there.
Hey, Ryan, pardon me. I know that you were talking about how you want to, build a team from inside out, and obviously a position like the quarterback is touching the ball all the time, particularly, on offense. So with that said, how would you kind of elaborate on your philosophy with developing a quarterback and even getting to know one in a Jacoby Brissett versus more of a known commodity that, could come in there and contribute right away based on their resume like a Lamar?
Well, I just think the biggest thing is where we are. I mean, it's again, we got to remember when you bring an entity that has, the number, the contract number, and the impact it's going to have, it's going to change exactly what we're trying to do right now. And that's the thing that we decided in terms of where we wanted to go. When we had our discussions, as a group, we talked about what we felt and how we feel about it, and we felt that going forward with what we've got with Sam and Jacoby now, we feel we can do that because of the guys that we have as playmakers. Because again, when you bring in a player with a big number, it impacts you, and you have to now, what do you have to give up? Who do you have to let go? And so that's a big thought for us, and it was something we didn't want to have to do in terms of letting specific players go that we brought in for a specific reason.
But from the standpoint of market value, if that's the market value for a quarterback, even if you're with Sam Howell, and let's say he develops into a franchise quarterback, in that guideline, right?
Oh, yeah.
At some point, he would be at that value of, the market for what a quarterback is. So,
but we can plan for that at that point. And we can go from there and see how to make it work at that point. And that's kind of where we are. We're at a point now because of what we have at the position of quarterback. We don't have to, not sign to Ron. We don't have to, go to certain guys. Hey, you either got to work with us or we got to let you go. We're not in that position. We're in a good position because again, we like the 5 playmakers we have on the offensive side. We like what we've done with the offensive line. We like our positioning in terms of our front 7, our safety positions, and our corners. We feel like we're in a really positive position.
Is that kicking the can, though?
It might be considered kicking the can down the road a little bit because, again, we're not at that position where we have to decide on who goes and who stays.
New Howell order.
What more can I say? Ron, I thought, handled that beautifully. And essentially, he talked about building this roster and what a Lamar Jackson deal would do to the roster building process that Washington is currently on. And he used Deron Payne as an example. He talked about the defensive line, and he said, look, there's a chance we can keep all 4 of these guys. It just depends on what these contracts look like. The likelihood is they can't. They'll have to choose one or the other in terms of these defensive ends. But I think right now Montez is the guy that they're focused on because he's been the healthier of the two, and he's been the guy that is produced at a much higher clip. But they're not giving up on Chase Young. He even talked about, you know, the new owner coming in. He used that as an excuse. I don't think the new owner has anything to do with whether they're going to pick up the 5th-year option or not. Obviously, the owner has something to say about it. It's $17 million. So the new owner could say, nah, we're not giving him $17 million. He hasn't stayed healthy nor proven himself other than his rookie season. Let him, you know, play out this last year of his rookie deal, and then it'll be what it is. And if he plays well, we'll franchise tag him. You know, I honestly think it's their decision to make, and they're going to pick up the 5th-year option. It just, to me, doesn't make enough sense not to, but we'll see. I don't want to jump the gun on that situation because I keep hearing Ron refer to the Daron Payne situation as if it's apples to apples. That's apples to oranges because they picked up the 5th-year option on Daron Payne, and in that 5th year, he showed them that he should have gotten the contract extension after year 4, not after year 5 when he was actually going to become a free agent. It's not the same, okay? He needed that 5th year to prove to them. Maybe if they hadn't picked up the 5th-year option, he would have done it in year 4. I doubt it, okay? Give Chase Young that same benefit of the doubt. I get it. It's way more money. Number 2 overall pick versus the number 13. That there's a big gap between how much they had to pay Daron Payne and how much they have to pay Chase Young if they pick up this 5th-year option. I'm well aware, but I think it's worth the risk. But we'll see what happens there. Ron talked about takeaways being an emphasis this year, that they're going to look for players that are ball hawks. I remember one of my biggest gripe, not one of my biggest gripe, me and my guy Derek B went back and forth because he talked about Benjamin St. Juste, and Juste was a really good corner at the University of Minnesota, had a ton of PBUs, but no interceptions. And I talked about how that was my biggest gripe, is that we got a bunch of dudes who don't take it away. We got a lot of guys that are around the ball, but they don't take it away. And in this league, the better defenses are the ones that are able to take the football away, create short fields for their offense, and really put the team in a position to be dominant. We don't create enough turnovers as a defense. There were spells last year where we didn't create a turnover. I think we created 1 turnover against Jacksonville. I don't think we created another turnover until like week number, I've got to say 6 against the Bears. I don't think we created a turnover. I know we didn't create any against the Lions. We didn't create any against Philadelphia. We had at least 2 opportunities, and we dropped them against Jalen Hurts. He threw the ball right to us, and we dropped it. None in week 4, even though we had 2. They were both negated by penalties on William Jackson III, so those didn't count. Week 5 against Tennessee, we didn't create a turnover, although we probably should have in that game, but we did not. As many times as we got to Tannehill, you would have liked to have seen the ball hit the ground at least once and a scoop one up, but it never happened. And in week 6, finally, we got to Justin Fields, and he helped us out. He was very generous on that night, and we were able to come away with an interception off of him, a muffed punt, and that ultimately decided that game. So we're not a takeaway team. Ron's like, we got to get dogs at corner that want to take it away. So that leads me to believe that they're looking at that Mississippi State corner, the skinny 178-pound kid that's like 6'3". His name escapes me at the moment. Matter of fact, I think I got my notes right here. I don't want to leave you guys without giving you his name. I think I have it right here. His name is Emmanuel Forbes. He's 6'1", 166 pounds. He is a toothpick, razor thin, 4.35 40 though, and I think he might have led the nation in interceptions. The guy's a dog when it comes to taking the football away. So I know Mel Kiper had him mocked to us in his last mock draft, and he'll be one of the guys that they'll be considering at 16. I truly believe that if the big 3 are gone, JPJ, Witherspoon, and Gonzalez are gone. I think that's the next wave. Emmanuel Forbes, Deontay Banks, those are the next wave of corners that you're going to see coming off the board. And Washington may be interested in a guy like Emmanuel Forbes because of his ability to take the football away. But we've got plenty of time to talk about that. But he did make it a point of emphasis to talk about cornerbacks and ball skills and taking it away because it's something that we don't do enough. Roster building, we just talked about that. Ron talked about that with the Lamar Jackson question that was thrown at him. And he talked about roster building in a way that I haven't heard him reference. He said, we're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs model. I've been really picking Andy Reid's brain, and I think that's a part of something that we didn't really take into consideration why he was so interested in bringing on Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. I think most of us just thought about Bieniemy being in Kansas City. I think above all else, the number one reason Ron brought him here is because Ron thinks that this guy has a chance to really change the way this offense performs and the efficiency of it and take this talent and really have it manifest itself into one of the better offenses in the league. That's number one. Number two, and a close second, you could easily argue it's 1A, 1B. Ron sees a lot of himself in Eric Bieniemy. Ron himself went on 7 or 8 different interviews before he finally got his opportunity in Carolina to be a head coach. And he was passed over multiple times. And I think Ron sees a guy that in Eric Bieniemy, a minority candidate like himself, that just needs an opportunity, needs for someone to believe in him, to give him a chance to prove once and for all that he can get the job done. And Ron wants to be the guy that extends that olive branch and gives him that opportunity to show that he's capable of being a head coach in this league. That said, though, I think something that we haven't really talked about is Ron wanting to pick Eric Bieniemy's brain because he knows Eric Bieniemy's been up under the wing of Andy Reid for the last 5 years, and the way they've done it has been the most successful over the last 5 years in the league, hence the fact that they've been to 3 different Super Bowls. They've won 2 of them. They've been to the AFC Championship game all 5 years Bieniemy was there. So obviously the success speaks for itself, and I think Ron wants to pick his brain and Andy Reid as to how they built the roster. And so he talked about roster building and wanting to do it the Kansas City Chiefs way. You know, drafting young players, you know, having time to allow those young players to develop, figuring out which ones you can keep, which ones you can't, you know, figuring out how to supplement your roster with free agents. He's, you know, taking in a lot of this information, but he's like, I want to do it the Chiefs way. Okay. That's the first time we've heard him mention that. Normally it's the Bills way, right? Wanting to do it like Sean McDermott. He actually said, I want to look at what the Chiefs are doing. And I think Bieniemy being here is a huge part of that. BPA at 16. Ron talked about BPA at 16 and how he says, I believe. At first he said, I think we. Then he said, no, I don't think. I believe we have put ourselves in a position to draft BPA at 16, which is what we ultimately set out to do when free agency got underway, which is what Ron said. And I feel like he's done that. He's at least thrown a dart at every single position that we said was a position of need going into free agency that was dire. He threw a dart at every single one of those positions. So it allows you the flexibility to go in and say, hey, if we see a tight end, if we see an edge rusher, if we see a running back, if we see a corner, if we see a quarterback, even, which I doubt, that we love at 16, we can take them. We don't have to pigeonhole ourselves like we did back in 2021 when they took Jamin Davis at linebacker because they needed a linebacker so desperately that they felt the pressure of, hey, we got to grab a guy at, I believe that was what, 21, I think, was that year we won the division, and that next year we needed a linebacker. Either way, they're not in that position, and he took it a step further. And then he was asked, a follow-up question was thrown at him about moving back, how they moved back, and that proved to be fruitful last year. And you know, Ron said, you know, the way we set up our board, and this is another thing that I told you guys a long time ago. And I had told you I knew someone that was in the room that said their guy was the receiver out of USC, you know, that I did not like, that I didn't want any parts of, but we know Ron likes his big receivers. And to be fair, we only had Cam Sims, and they knew Cam Sims was, going into the last year of his deal, and he's no longer here. So they may have been trying to plan for the future. I wasn't a huge fan of his, and the Falcons bailed us out by taking Drake London. Because Ron specifically said we had our board, and if our guy wasn't there, then we had already decided that we were going to try to find a partner to move back. The Saints we knew were interested, so we made a call. We had a list of 5 guys that we truly liked because, again, the Saints were at 16. They were at 11, so if you move back to 16, you're moving back 5 spots. So you tell yourself, hey, if we're moving back, we got 5 guys that we like. We're guaranteed to get one of them. One of them will be on the board at 16, and they said they love Jahan Dotson, and look how it worked out. So essentially what he's saying is that could be in effect this year, but last year was definitely something that they considered. So I thought that was interesting hearing him elaborate on that as well. Handling the cap. So Ron talked about how they're handling the cap situation. And, it's a big topic because of Lamar Jackson, and he made sure to expound upon that, and he talked about things that they're doing. And I just love the fact that he's very aware of what's going on with these players and, what's like how he addressed Josina Anderson. I'm assuming it's her. I don't know it's her, but I'm assuming it's her. And how he said, look, we can plan. I just told you guys this. As a matter of fact, I think I told you guys this the other day. We can plan for a situation where Sam Howell is good. We're going to pay him, and that's the going rate. And I told you guys, don't worry about money. If you're worried about the money aspect of it, you have to get out of that mindset, because that's the going rate for the quarterback position. If Sam Howell's good, we're going to have to pay him the same kind of money Lamar Jackson is looking for, except Lamar wants fully guaranteed, and nobody's trying to give that out. Nobody's giving out fully guaranteed deals, okay, except for the Cleveland Browns. And so you're going to have to pay big money at the quarterback position if he's good, and you should be willing to do that if a guy is proven to you that he's worth that type of investment. But you can plan for that. I told you all the deals that they've set up have been set up in a manner that they all expire right around the same time. And a lot of money will be coming off the books at the same, and it just so happens to coincide with when Sam Howell will be up for a contract. It's not rocket science. So he talked about handling the cap situation, putting themselves in a position where, they've done a really good job. I've said this. We're in a very healthy financial situation. Even though the cap number that we're looking at doesn't scream a bunch of money, we're in a really solid cap situation. And if they need to make moves, they can, which is why they're not panicking about our cap situation. Martin Mayhew pretty much said that. He talked about Eric Bieniemy's effect on their team this year. He said EB's already been getting with the offensive coaches. He's been putting meetings together at 7 a.m. in the morning, really invigorating that group and really injecting life into the building and really getting everybody excited about what he's trying to implement in Washington. So they're very excited about what he's brought to the table. They said he was a huge part of them bringing Andrew Wiley on board. He's been advocating for certain players. I think he's advocating for, another running back to be brought in. And I think he's advocating for Jerick McKinnon, but I think they want to, take a look-see at the draft first before they do that. I think Eric Bieniemy has had a very, very good impact on this team. I think the morale has been boosted just off of the strength of him being added. You look at what Terry said to him. You look at Sam Howell and all those guys. Again, when most offensive coordinators are hired, it's rare to have 15 players there at his introductory press conference. That's not commonplace. It's common for 3 or 4 guys to show up, 5, 6 guys. We literally had about 12 to 15 guys show up, and some of them weren't even on the offensive side of the football. Like, that's the kind of impact Eric Bieniemy has right now with the players as a fan base, we're stoked, right? He's got us believing that we're going to have a chance to have a dynamic offense this year for the first time in a long time, right? And I think he's invigorated the coaching staff. I think he's injected life into them as well. So I think his impact and effect has been largely felt. Now we need to actually see results. But I can tell you right now, the non-tangible, right? I think it's been off the charts. The non-tangible impact that Eric Bieniemy had thus far has been off the charts. Now we need to see the tangibles, the ones we can touch, the ones we can see, we can feel. Hopefully he delivers in that department as well. Ron talked about quarterback and the competition. He went and did the Ron thing. I told you he doesn't want to overcommit to Sam Howell, the starter, but Sam's the starter. He did say that they're going to look at, potentially bringing in a third quarterback. They already have a third quarterback on the roster. I'm like, Ron, come off of it. Stop it, okay? Jake Fromm is not what I deem to be and you guys know it. Stop it, okay? Jake Fromm is cool. You can do better in the developmental quarterback department, and they're going to be a plethora of guys available. Jaron Hall, Jake Hayner. The list goes on and on and on in this particular draft class that I think are really, solid quarterbacks. They got to find a guy in this year's draft that they can develop as a potential backup, because Jacoby Brissett's one and done here. All right. He'll do his time. He'll be a great mentor, and then it's on to the next job for him as he mentors another young quarterback. We need that third stringer to be ready to step in to that Taylor Heineke role that we've designated here in Washington. So they need to, draft themselves a quarterback. I got my list right here in front of me. There's plenty of guys that I think are capable in this year's draft class. Let me pull up my list of QBs. Stetson Bennett is capable. Let me see. I think I went too far. I think I went one too far. No, I didn't. Yeah, Stetson Bennett is capable. Obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is capable. You've got the Bagent kid that's very capable. I told you guys that I'm a big fan of Jaron Hall, who I think is very capable. I'm also a fan of Jake Hayner, who I think is very capable. There are going to be a number of quarterbacks available in the back end of the draft that I think can come in here, pick up the system and, be effective as a backup quarterback in this league. So I hope they look to add a guy there and not just settle for, Jake Fromm. But Ron did say, and I think him and GM Martin Mayhew were pretty much on the same page with this one. As far as the running back position it goes, they're going to add a guy. They love their top two running backs. They like some of the other guys, but they don't love any of those guys. And thus, they're going to look to add another running back, whether it's via the draft or free agency. They're going to add another running back. Trust me on that. You can take that one to the bank. They're going to add a running back to this roster, whether it's the draft or free agency. They're adding a running back. I think right now, if I had to put money on it, I'd say it's going to be the draft. But you never know how the board shakes out, right? They could be sitting in a position where their intention is to take a running back, and then they see a guy that they've got a third-round grade on sitting there in the fifth round. They're like, we got to take this guy. And then there was your opportunity to take a running back because, in the seventh round now, you've got a couple of other positions that you want to key in on. And you're just saying the value just isn't there at running back. We're just going to pass on that position as a whole. And then you just go in free agency after the draft and grab one. So they're going to do something at running back. So it was a lot from Ron. Ron spoke for over 34 minutes, and it was a great listen. Again, if you haven't done so, please take a listen. But as I've told you guys, I'm dropping gems on your melon, man. Just stick with me. I'm gonna take you as far as you want to go. All right. Again, I'm not always right, and I'll be the first to tell you when I'm wrong. But when I'm right, I'm gonna make sure I'm right, and I'm right more than I'm wrong. So, damn, this was some good stuff from Ron. So anyway, I digress. We'll have plenty more to discuss during the course of the week. As I mentioned, we're going to have a big show with Rio, Ed, Rico, and myself on Wednesday night. That's followed by the NFC East Super Friends on Thursday night. So lots to get to this week. Big shows on the horizon. Hopefully you'll be staying tuned in to the Louie T Network for all of it. But in any event, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I'll see you guys on the other side. I appreciate y'all kicking it with the kid. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And we will chop it up on Wednesday night live with the fellas as we talk Washington Commanders football. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one.